let's get the Yaesu 8X7 set up and ready for digital modes. Stick around and we'll get right to it. Now, for today's video, I'll be using the Yaesu 857, but this will also apply to the 817 and the 897, and I believe it should also apply to the Yaesu 818, although I haven't tested all of this with an 818. For today's setup, we're going to be using the Sombrant SoundCard, which can be purchased off of Amazon for roughly $9. We're going to pair that with the cable that we get off of eBay from a seller called Hamdapter. And guys, I'll leave links to everything down in the description below. For the cat control cable, we're going to grab a CT62 cable off of Amazon, and I like the ones by Valley Enterprises. They're a little bit more expensive, but I've had great luck for those. So roughly $30 for that cable, and again, links down below. And finally, for the GPS unit, we're going to change it up a bit today, and we're going to use a GlobalSat Bravo Uniform 353 Sierra 4 GPS unit. So the first thing we want to do is open our terminal so we can grab a little bit of information that we're going to need for today's setup. The first thing we're going to check is for the sound card number, so we'll run a record space -L. Go ahead and press return, and that lets us know that our card number is 3 and our device is 0. So we'll need that as we go through this setup. The next thing we need to do is list out our USB devices so we know where the radio and the GPS are located. We do that by typing out ls space /dev/serial/by-ID. Go ahead and press return, and that gives us two results today. The first one is going to be the radio, and the second one is going to be the GPS unit. Now, this one is not as obvious as some of the other setup videos that I've done as to which one is the GPS unit. If you can't figure out which is which, the easiest thing to do is plug up one or the other device and then run this ls command right here and take a look at what the results are. Then plug in your second device along with your first and run the command again, and you should be able to figure out which is which. Now that we have this information, let's go ahead and open up FLRIG. When that opens, we're going to get this transceiver not responding. That's to be expected because, well, we hadn't configured anything yet. Let's go ahead in FLRIG and click on Config, Setup, and Transceiver. For the rig, we want to choose, in my case, the 857, since that's the radio that I'm working with today. So I'll select that. This next box here, we're going to hit the drop down, and I'm looking for that FTDI FT232R. So I'll go ahead and choose that, and then we need to know the baud rate of the radio. So take a look at your radio and figure out what baud rate you have set on the radio. In my particular case, I'm using 9600, and that is found in the 857 on menu number 19. So let's go ahead and make the change here to 9600 and then press initialize. You should hear the radio click a few times and it should be reading out correctly. I'm going to go ahead and close this configuration window. You will notice right here it says connected, and I've got the little green dot or little green diamond telling me that everything is good. I don't need these extra controls right now, so I'm going to go ahead and close those as well. And we'll just move FLRIG over here to the side out of the way. Now, let's get WSJTX configured. Once you've got the application open, click on File and Settings. Go ahead and give it your call sign and your grid. We'll click on Radio next, right up here at the top. And where it says Rig, we're going to choose FLRIG, FLRIG. For the PTT method, let's choose CAT. For the mode, let's choose Data and Packet. And for split operations, I like to use Fake It. Now, before we can test the CAT, we do need to go ahead and set up our audio card. So let's click on the Audio tab next and go ahead and click on Input. Right down at the very bottom, you will see this ALSA Input USB-C Media Electronics. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. That also says USB audio device, so that may help you as well if yours isn't named exactly the same. Next, let's go ahead and click on the Output. And this time we're going to choose that ALSA Output USB-C Media. Now let's go ahead and head back to the Radio tab and go ahead and test our CAT connection. You can see that we get a green button here, and if we look right over here, you'll see that the frequency matches what's already set in FLRIG. Let's test the PTT next. And the PTT is working on my radio. That's it. Let's go ahead and move over to JS8Call. If this is your first time opening JS8Call, it will go ahead and open to the settings screen for you. Go ahead and fill out your call sign and your grid. Once you've got that, let's go ahead and click on the radio tab next. And just like WSJTX, we're going to scroll down and use FLRIG. Once again, we're going to be using the CAT option for PTT. I'm going to use data and packet under my mode, and we'll use fake it for the split operation. Let's go ahead and head over to the audio tab and take a quick peek at that. And it looks like JS8Call has already pulled in the correct information. Just like we saw in WSJTX, we're going to be using the C Media Electronics device for input and output. Let me slide this over just a little bit so we can see the frequency here in JS8Call, and let's jump back to the radio tab and test that CAT connection. The button turns green, and you can see the frequency changed as we expected it to. Let's go ahead and test PTT next. And it looks like the PTT connection is working. Next, let's tackle FLDIGI. When FLDIGI opens for the first time, you'll get this configuration wizard. I'm just going to go ahead and click Next right here, and I'm going to fill in the station call and the operator call with my call sign. If you'd like, go ahead and fill out the rest of this information and then choose Next. Under Sound and Devices, we're going to put a check mark by port audio, and then under the capture right here, we're going to click on that, and we're going to select this USB audio device 3,0. Now, remember that matches the number that we saw in the terminal window when we ran the arecord-l command earlier. That's that card 3 and device 0. Go ahead and select that for the playback as well. Let's hit the next button. And this is rig control with FLRIG, which is the option we want to use. So let's put a check mark here that says enable FLRIG as the controller with FLDIGI as the client. Let's go ahead and click Next. This screen is for a different style of rig control that we're not going to be using. So we can just go ahead and skip this screen, and we can skip the next screen, which is hamlib. We're not going to be using that directly either. And on the last screen, I'm just going to leave everything at default. Let's go ahead and press Finish and give this just a second to open up. And it takes it a couple of seconds to get its bearings, and it should go ahead and change to the frequency that matches what you see in FLRIG. To verify your PTT is set correctly, you can go ahead and press Tune right here and verify that your radio goes into transmit mode. Mine does, so it looks like we're good to go. Now we need to go ahead and tackle Winlink, and we're going to be tackling this for both 2M 440 and HF, since these radios are capable of doing all of the bands. In the terminal window, I'm going to run nano space direwolf.conf. Go ahead and press return, and we're going to start scrolling down this file. The first thing we want to check is this A device plug HW :3,0. Here again, this 3,0 is the card number that we saw earlier in the video. So this looks good in my configuration file. Let's go ahead and keep scanning down. Verify that your call is correct where it says my call space and then my call sign, KM4ACK. Let's go ahead and keep going down. We need to verify that modem 1200 is set. That is uncommented, so there's no pound sign in front of that. We've got one other setting to make sure is correct, and that's our PTT control for Direwolf. Now, if you look right here, this is the one that we're going to use, but it is commented out. So I'm going to go back up to this line and take out that pound sign in front of it. So my rig control statement is PTT space rig space 2 space localhost colon 4532. That'll tell Direwolf to use FLRIG for the rig control when we're running with Pat Winlink. Let's go ahead and press Control S to save that file and Control X to get out of it. Now that we've got Direwolf configured, let's go ahead and open up Pat menu, and let's go into the Settings and Config screen here, and then Current Config Settings. I want to make sure that my rig control is set to yes because I will be using rig control in this case. This next command here is for RDOP, and if you look right over here at the end of this, you will see that 3,0 a couple of times. Verify that that matches your card number. The rest of this we should be able to leave at default until we get down to this HF mode, and we need to figure out what to plug into these boxes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump back to the terminal for a second, and I'll just go ahead and clear that screen. In FLRIG, make sure that your radio is set to the digital mode, and then run RIG CTL space -M space 4 space M. Press return, and that's going to tell you that it's PKT USB 0. Now, we'll remember that that's going to be for the HF side. Next up, let's change the radio, the mode on the radio to packet, and let's run that same command again. I'm just going to press the up arrow on the keyboard and go ahead and press return. This time, you can see that it reads out RTTY for ready. Now that we have that information, let's head back to the PAP menu settings, and let's set the HF mode for PKT USB, and for the 2 meter side, we'll use RTTY. Once you've got that information set, go ahead and click Update. And let's head back to the main menu. We do need to set our PTT for RDOP, so the next thing we're going to do is click Manage PAT Winlink. We'll click the Set RDOP PTT button, and we'll change this from false to true. Go ahead and click Set PTT, and that should take care of your RDOP PTT settings. Now let's go ahead and configure VARA and VARA FM before we make a connection. So I'm going to click on the menu here, come down to ham radio, and find my VARA. This is for VARA HF, so we'll click on that one first. Once this opens up, go ahead and click on Settings, and if you've got a registration key, click on VARA Setup and go ahead and enter your registration key. I'm going to go ahead and move down to the SoundCard, and for the input and output, I'm going to choose the USB audio device. Once you've got those selected, we can click Close here, and that should take care of setting the SoundCard for VARA HF. Next, let's go ahead and open up VARA FM and get it configured real quick. Just like with VARA HF, you need to click on VARA Setup and enter your registration key and your call. I'm going to go ahead and move down to SoundCard. And once again, we're going to choose USB audio device for both the input and the output. Go ahead and click Close here. We don't have to worry about setting the PTT. That's going to be handled through Winlink and FLRIG. We should be done with the VARA FM settings. Okay, so let's go ahead and run a quick test, make sure everything is working correctly. I'm just going to do a packet modem test since that's what I've got hooked up as far as an antenna goes. So we'll click on Start Packet Modem and give this just a couple of seconds for everything to start up. If everything goes as expected, you'll get this Packet Modem has started button, or dialog box rather, and then we can start a connection with Ready, and we'll choose AX25. For the transport, we'll use WC4 EOC-8, and I'm going to go ahead and manually plug in that frequency. Once we've plugged that in, you'll see that the box here has turned green, and if we look over on FLRIG, we can see that the frequency has changed there as well. Now I've got an HT sitting here next to me so I can monitor this connection as well, and I'm going to just go ahead and press the connect button. And as you can see down here in the bottom terminal window, everything went through as expected and we got a good disconnect. The last thing we need to do is configure the GPS. From the main menu, I'm going to come down to Accessories and GPS Update Tool. I'm going to choose USB for this particular device and click Continue. It'll tell us to connect our GPS, mine is connected, and then we need to select our GPS. So I'm going to choose the second option here, which we saw early in the video when we ran that ls/dev serial by ID command. We'll go ahead and choose it and say OK. It'll tell us that the GPS unit has been updated. Let's open up a terminal window and run cgps. and you should see your data populate here. If we give it just a second, it will update our grid square over in Conky right underneath our call sign. And that's it, guys. That should have your 8x7 radio up and running for digital modes. If you found this information helpful, be sure to leave us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.